allowed this stuff. Hello, everyone, and welcome to I guess, it's usually a kickoff closing ceremonies of our first Writer MBA virtual conference. How are you feeling, Monica?
This has been amazing. It's honestly been just the best response from people. Seeing people chatting in circle about all the calls has been awesome. I feel like we should introduce ourselves because I feel like again, like the virtual, there's a lot of people that we haven't really met before that are not. I don't know. I mean, clearly they're like part of our audience in some way, but have not been part of our audience for the last couple years. So do you
Sure,
want to
go for
start,
it.
Russell? Oh, me. Okay. So my name is Monica Leonelle. I'm a USA Today bestselling author. I have a Substack called The World Needs Your Passion. So if you are over on Substack, come hang out with me over there. And basically have been also written with Russell 40 books for authors. And then also written like fiction books and other nonfiction books that were not for authors. I have something like 60 in my catalog all together. And I've been an independent author since 2009. I started out with a business book that I was using as like a business card to get a new job, basically, or like to um, transition to a new career, and that worked. And then I fell in love with publishing books, so I just kind of kept doing it. So and we formed Writer MBA a couple of years ago. We basically wanted to take some of Russell's stuff and Russell's content about Kickstarter and turn it into books. And so we did that. And then Brandon Sanderson had a huge Kickstarter campaign, and we decided to form a company to help train people on Kickstarter. And then it kind of exploded into training on just general sales, marketing, and business.
Yes, and I we should clarify. Most of the books Monica wrote by herself.
Mm,
We've written, I think,
we've written seven now.
seven together.
Seven
The,
together.
and
Russell's
the
written three or four by himself. So
and these are our two newest ones. We have the proofs for
yes.
our direct sales mastery for authors, volume 1 and 2, which should be going out the next couple weeks. I've written a couple nonfiction books. I'm also a USA Today best-selling author. I have written all of these books. I do comics and novels and all sorts of stuff, training on Kickstarter, courses. Um, Monica and I met a long time ago. I had her on my podcast, and we just stayed friendly ever since. And then I kind of licensed slash sold a lot of my all my nonfiction books to her at the end of 2020. And we released the first one of those together in 2021. And then
Hmm.
yeah, it's so my career is a lot more intersectional, I think. Like I've directed movies, and I've like had a I serialized books, and like I do a bunch of comics and anthologies, and so like I'm a lot more fragmented, I guess, than most other authors, but I've been able to have success in a lot of other things. So my passion is really kind of like the intersection of craft and commerce, and like how you can build a career without selling your soul in the process, or only selling the parts of your soul that you want to sell and getting a fair price for it.
It's weird though, because like before that was like your brand even before we started working together. And your other like another brand you had, which we've kind of dropped that name, is the Complete Creative. But it's interesting because I have like basically the same brand as Russell, except like I'm a very different human, but my brand has always been essentially the world needs your passion. So like very early on in my life, I was making six figures in corporate America, working as a marketing director, C level marketing director at startups, and it wasn't my passion. And then like kind of my life exploded because I got divorced, and um, I had to figure out very quickly this equation of like passion plus money. And so it was just kind of the same thing. Like, how do you not sell your soul anymore, but still like function in life? And
Yeah.
how do you, essentially, I think it's like, how do you pursue a creative career and like not lose your shirt?
Yeah.
And so I think that's like what all of our work kind of goes back to, and why we're so focused on helping writers like learn how to make money from their work.
Yeah, probably there's only one person on this call who might know, who might have been around back when my first nonfiction book, How to Build Your Creative Career, was literally called Sell Your Soul. I may have a
I
copy
feel
of it
like it was
somewhere.
me.
Yeah, well, I
Like
think it was you.
I was definitely there, but
Well, I mean, I think there's one of the people was like at conventions with
oh
me
yeah,
around
yeah.
that time. So it was like Sell Your Soul, How to Build Your, I don't remember what the
It was
tagline
like
was, but it did not work because no one wants to sell their soul. But like it was a joke, and like it's like sell your how to like sell something from your anyway.
yeah.
Like so I changed it to the much more boring How to Build Your Creative Career Without Selling Your Soul, and like it ends up working a lot better. So, but this is not about us. I mean, it kind of is about us because like it's our company, and like I should say that like this virtual is one piece of our conference, which is called Writer MBA Con. It's going to be happening in March next year in New Orleans. A lot of these people who you saw today either were at our first event and or going to come to our second event. So I think I kind of like want feedback. So I have done a lot of these before. Monica and I co-hosted one with our friend Nick Nelson a couple of years ago during one of our campaigns. I've run a couple before, but I've always run them live. And so there are some advantages of running them live, which is like after you finish them, you know exactly how you did because like people are there live and like giving you live feedback and taking live questions. With this kind of more asynchronous, personally, I like it more because I like watching things at double speed. And and I like that like people in New Zealand were emailing us like when is it gonna be start like what is the times? We were like just whenever you get up and like it's in there like they didn't have to like get up at 1 in the morning to watch. So I really like that. But like we have almost no feedback, Monica. So like I'd like to just ask like if anyone has feedback, if like you have things that you can put it in the chat. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to like know kind of how we did, what you liked, what you didn't like. I'm not going to put you on blast in the in the
Recording.
in the chat. But we'd really appreciate like what was your favorite talk? Maybe we can start there. We're not going to say what your least favorite talk is, but like, or what was your favorite part?
I also, so while we're doing that, I also just wanted to say we have a community. It's a circle community. We also do have a Facebook group. So if you happen to be on Facebook and active on Facebook, you can find our group, which is Writer MBA. Come join that group. We're happy to have you. We're kind of always chatting in there too. But we also have a separate community that's a little bit more closed off and private. And we've been chatting about the virtual in that community, but definitely come over to that because Russell and I are prolific. Like we write a lot about success in writing and books and creativity and everything. And so if you're new to writing, or you're probably not new to writing, but if you're new to like authorship, you're new to comics, like if there's something you want to do, like definitely come over because we are really in there pretty much daily as well, talking about mindset, talking about sales, marketing, advertising, automation, like
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff over there. So definitely come over.
And definitely if you have questions in general, like someone asked a great question here. So if you have questions, like this is the time. I will be honest, I've not watched every talk because there's a lot of them. We have someone on our team has watched every talk. We have seen a lot of these people present. We have used almost all of their products, but
Mm-hmm. That was one of the
Some
questions.
Yeah, the question was, do you use all of their products? And I have to log in because like there's a lot. Like there was like 20 talks to like just make sure I'm like before I say yes, I want to go in and see. But Monica, like what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think we use basically all of them individually and have been using all of them for years. So like we've both been wide authors for years. Like I started in this in 2009. I had accounts like when they were available at every wide retailer. So like I've had my Google Play account since 2015 or 2014, for example. My Apple Books one since 2012, my Kobo one since 2012. So like absolutely we use all the retailers. BookBub, we're both on there, multiple pen names. We both use ads from that. I'm trying to think. I also have to pull it up to see written word media. Yes, we both
Yeah,
use
and
that
I use
like
written word
quite a
media a
bit.
lot. Okay,
Yeah.
so like the first one was Plotter. Um, I've known Ryan Z for a long time and Cameron for a
Yeah.
long time. Like I've tested Plotter. I'm very I don't want to say anti-technology, but like I like Word. I learned on Word. Like every time someone is like, use this or use this other thing or plot this way, I'm like, I'm kind of antiquated in how I do it. Like I don't use Scrivener. I just use like Word. And like a part of the reason I like writing is like you could do it with a pen and pencil and like still get the same functionality as someone 100 years ago. So like I personally don't use Plotter. I do use Ryan's other product. He recently left Plotter, but like Book Sweeps is one that I've used a lot that
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I had a Flutter account for a year or two, but I wasn't using it. I was more into Scrivener, and now I just like the biggest reason I don't use Flutter is because I'm a mom of like very young kids. So I have to like write online or I have to like write on my phone a lot or like on my iPad or just it's just something where like, a big beautiful screen with all of these like
yeah,
visuals just does not work for me right now. So that's kind
uh,
of why I don't use it.
Book Brush, like
BookBrush we both use.
yep.
Facebook
Facebook
ads.
ads. I
Yes.
mean, and Writing Lives, like both.
Yeah. I've taken a lot of their classes and was in a mastermind with Mal for
yeah.
years.
Oh, Book Vault. We use Book Vault.
Yes,
Um,
we print from Book Vault.
yeah, you think Book Vault's like the top one, right? Or top,
Book
close to the
Vault,
top, or
yeah, Book Vault. I mean, Book Vault is my yeah, my printer of choice right now for print on demand, and especially connecting it to my storefront and even just fulfilling Kickstarter campaigns right
yeah.
now. That's what I'm using.
All right. Written word media. Yes, use
Yes,
them, like them. Um,
Draft to Digital we both
Draft to
use.
Digital, we both use. Like I have Atticus now, but before then they were the only way that I would format books. And still, I format most of my books with like Draft to Digital because I just know that it works. Like there's not like a ton of choices, but I just know that like the book will work. In fact, yeah, I so yes, we use them. Let's see, who is this one?
Let's see, we have the AI job. Oh, yeah, Future Fiction Academy. Yes, I have a paid account there. I'm in their training stuff. I don't write with I don't write with them yet, but and I don't know if I will. But I work with them to like just understand all the changes that are coming with like these AI tools, even though I honestly don't use the AI tools very much.
I use them a
Zapier.
lot for like checking things, but yeah, I mean, I think I can say I'm nervous that Shell's gonna like contradict me because she's on the call. But like we're pretty close with Shell. I think we can like say like we've like done an issue with her magazine. Like we are good friends with Shell. And so like, but also like I use Zapier now all of the time. Monica, you
Mm-hmm.
had this really cool. You just said, I don't remember exactly how you said it. It was like you had a sheet that you were like, I'm just going to, when I see something I don't like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just put it on my list. And that was something we learned from Shell.
Yeah, I called it the board list, but Shell kind of, I mean, Shell had maybe a different name for it. I don't remember. But basically it's like, hey, like look at your process. If something's not working, like put it on the list and see if you can do it in Zapier. And we've been doing that. I mean, Russell, you've been doing that a lot more than me. It takes me forever to do things because I just have I have a 6 month old right now. So like I don't have a lot of computer time, but I'm all for like to like emailing somebody and asking them to make a Zap for me.
Yes.
Um yeah,
So that
Genius Links is the next one.
yeah, I mean, I use
Yeah,
Genius Links. I
I have
don't
a
I don't use their book linker one, the other one
no.
that they do, but like I do use Genius Links.
The book linker one is free, I think, and it's like a free tool. It's limited, but then Genius Links is like an upgraded tool. So it's if you have more books or like you're a professional author or whatever, Genius Links is great. His well. So somebody that we know was mentioning that they make thousands of extra dollars using Genius Links because it puts your affiliate link into your book links, which is super helpful if you're wide. So like Genius Links solves problems for wide authors basically. So
Yeah.
we're really familiar with them and use them. Um,
Well, I think that's
Jen,
true with a lot of our things too. It's just like a lot of these things are very helpful to wide authors, which is something that
right?
most authors have not thought about. So like these are all tools that like a lot of the rest of the community really does like use quite a bit and has been using, but it's been a very small segment of the
Mm-hmm.
of people who've been doing that. So tropes, I mean, I love Jennifer's books. Like we talk about Jennifer's books all the time. Um
Yeah, I mean, we both like own all her
yeah.
books.
And like she
Like,
writes for the author stack. So like yes, I
yeah,
literally was just going back and forth with this morning BookBub ads. Like I don't run a lot of
Kobo.
ads right now, but like when I do, I've done BookBub ads and all the other BookBub things I've done for sure. Um
Yeah,
Kobo,
we talked about Kobo. We're both on. Well,
yeah.
I'm on
Oh yeah, I
Kobo.
love Kobo. I think Kobo
Yeah,
has the
Kobo.
best back end. Like the most pleasant back end to upload things
Oh,
to.
100%.
Um
Um, let's see. Pierre's talk
yeah.
on Shopify. I would say we both tested Shopify a lot, and we don't currently use it. We're not. I think we're opposed to using it.
I feel like Steve
But
just convinced me I may have to use it now, but like we both love Pierre and like
we well, we also he's starting to do warehousing for Kickstarter authors, so we're starting to send him some of our stuff. We
yeah,
have another warehouser too that we use, but and some of it we ship POD. Like it really just depends on the campaign. But yeah,
right.
we definitely are using his Kickstarter side already.
Um, I mean, Lee and Renee were the closing speakers of our conference. I mean, I have a podcast with Lee. I wrote a comic for Lee, so like, I don't know how you like use like a human,
Like a
but like
mind
I am
like a
close.
mindset
I am
thing,
very
yeah.
well connected with like we are very well connected with like Lee, and like I'm hoping that this comic goes well because then I want to do their Renee series with Renee. All
Yeah.
right.
So the next one is
Oh,
Publish
published
Drive.
drive. Yeah. I
Yeah. I
yeah,
actually don't I don't have an account with Publish Drive. I
I
mean,
have
I'm really close with Publish Drive, but
I have so many books with published drive. The thing
oh,
is
I didn't
there's
know
like
that.
published drive and draft to digital have some overlap, but they go to
Mm-hmm.
many different like they
Right.
actually go to a ton of different places. And I used to do them plus Streetlib.
Mm-hmm.
And Streetlib then it's because then you get like all of the African country, like they can
Right.
kind of like they have a whole diaspora of like no that nowhere else goes to. But I didn't make any money on Streetlib literally ever on any like I never made one penny on Streetlib, so I stopped doing Streetlib. But they Publish Drive and Draft to Digital go to some overlap, but actually very different places too, I would say.
Yes.
Kickstarter, I mean, the only one we did live was the Kickstarter one because I love Oriana so much
Yeah.
and I love them all so much. But like we did this one, we did like a thing. So like yes, singularly, Kickstarter has made me
Doing
the most money
Kickstarter.
of anything in my entire life. It's made me the most money. So like I will I will stump for Kickstarter all day. Amazon ads.
I use a lot of Amazon ads. I will say this presentation was from Reedsy. I've I don't like I tend to hire in networks, so I haven't used Reedsy a lot, but I think one thing that they are really good for is like fine like if you don't have as big of a network in the authorship space. They're really good at vetting people. They
Yeah.
also have a bunch of free tools, so like formatters,
Mhm.
calculators, like all sorts of stuff. That is really really good. Like they're really really good tools.
Yeah. And
Um,
if you do author services, like a lot of my friends do editorial, they make a lot of money from Reedsy. Like it's a very good tool on the like author services side too. Um I do not use we do not use I do not use Aurora Publicity.
I don't either.
That's like the one. I do We do have many assistants that like help us and do things for us.
Yeah,
And
we
I love Sam. It's like this is not
mhm.
against just like just haven't done used them.
We haven't
But
worked with them in particular, but I think they specialize too. Like they
mm,
specialize in romance and we're actually we both are romance authors, but like not at the level where we would be where we're ready to kind of use their stuff to push our romance. Um,
and I don't
so
know. It's like there's two other people that run this with us, Tadra and Mel. So like I don't know if either of them use their service, but like and then we have what is the Event Horizon? Which one is
oh, this
this
is
one? Oh,
Desiree's.
Desiree's. Yeah, I mean I've been friends with Desiree for a whole long time. Another person, another of our vendors for the conference, and then Orna Ross. Orna wrote for me. Um for the author stack. So like again, I don't know. I've read her book and like read her things, but like I've not like
Well,
she's not like one of like I've never worked with her outside of that. But
well, and you're on. So this is not Ally is not really a sponsor or partner or anything, but she founded Ally, and you are on the Ally Council as a Kickstarter expert. So,
yes, I specifically
that's
want to avoid.
I
I was trying
know,
to avoid saying that
I
thing because
know, but
like
I am gonna just they're not yeah, it's not related, but
I mean, I love a thing that she does that has no association with this, which is Ally. I will stump for them all day, but like
yes,
Orna specifically, and one of the absolute most like generous and knowledgeable humans that I've ever met in self-publishing, like was like stumping for self-publishing and independent authors, like at a way
very
before
early, yes.
way before it was in vogue to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, I think the like all of these people,
Well, you
for the
forgot
most part,
Melissa.
like came to our in-person conference as well. Oh, and then Melissa, I forgot about Melissa. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote a comic with Melissa. Like, I work with Melissa very closely. I finished a novel for Melissa. Like, so like I work with Melissa. I don't use her Facebook ads, but like there's a very select group of people that I would recommend people look into for Facebook ads, and she is like on that list. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, and like every time I talk to Melissa, it's like she's like she knows just so much.
I know
So
she does.
and like
Same for me. Like every time I talk to her, I'm like, whoa.
and I think that like 80 to 90% of these people are like were at our virtual conference, but we specifically vet everyone. Like people do not get to be like on this list unless like unless like we know that they do good work. and like pretty universally have nothing but good things to say about them. I mean, not everyone's going to have every comment be positive, but like these are these are our goal with these events is to bring the people who are moving the industry forward in a positive way.
Oh, Shell says that it's a suck it list. I love that. Oh, that's so much better than mine. Like, why did I even have a why did I even have a name for it? Like, okay.
That is the list of things you don't want to do, not a list of our vendors. There's two different things. We're going back a little
Sorry.
bit.
Yes,
Um,
I'm sorry.
Tadra, I know, is on here. If Tadra wanted to turn off on her thing and have any words to say about any of these people, that would be great too. But I'm not going to put her on the spot. Only putting Monica and I on the spot, but I do see that
Thanks
she's there.
so much, Russell. I'm so glad you're not putting me on the spot. I'm not putting on my video. I am at the end of, I've written like 50,000 words this weekend, so you can't even imagine what I look like. But I don't think I've moved from my desk. Um, yeah, no, everybody, I listened to every single workshop and I thought they were all awesome. And I just have been loving them. So highly recommend. The only thing better than the virtual is coming to see them all in person. Just
Oh,
saying. I
that's
mean, I
so
don't
good.
know. I'm not saying everybody who we saw in the virtual will be there in person. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying if I had the opportunity.
Many people I can say are coming. Jennifer Hilt is definitely coming. Um, Lee and Renee are definitely coming. Um, uh,
Melissa.
Melissa Storm is definitely coming. Many people have also given us like verbal yeses, but not like I know they have tickets. Oh, Future Fiction Academy is coming.
They're coming.
Um, um, yeah, so those are
Yeah.
the only people I think I can officially say that are coming, but
Mm-hmm.
that are on here. But yeah, I mean, our goal is to. I have an email going out in a couple days that's like, do you want to meet all the people that are here, like in person? Because like that's the biggest bit, I think, like doing the one-on-ones and like being in the talks and like having it all connect. That's the one thing again that I think was missing from this was like the when you're live, there's just like that immediacy of
Yeah,
everyone connects together there, which hopefully we can get here.
for
So,
sure. Yeah,
um,
and I also think there's a couple other things about the conference, the in-person conference. So it's called Writer MBA Con. There's a couple other things. So I think like the virtual summit has been a great example of the type of content that's going to be at this. I think that the content at the in-person is even elevated possibly. People like companies and individuals and everybody who does this type of stuff, they tend to share a little bit more in person, or they tend to, do a little bit more like intermediate content in person or advanced content in person. So, and I think some of these talks were really quite advanced already. So I want to be clear about that. Um, but then I also think there's two other great features of the in-person conference, aside from all the things that you would expect at a conference. So one of those things is author ecosystems. Author ecosystems is our framework that basically helps break down the sales funnel into archetypes. And those archetypes, so you find out what your archetype is, and then kind of your natural or organic marketing and sales style. And that we're going to kind of code all of these talks with those labels, so that if you are a forest, for example, we can match you up with people who are speaking to the forest archetype. So, like, they're going to be saying things that you will actually feel like really good and excited about in terms of sales and marketing, rather than things that like you're like, oh, that's a great idea, but not for me, not for my personality, not for my situation, not for my books, whatever it might be.
Yes, we go.
Yeah,
We
go ahead.
like conferences are a lot of overwhelm. They're overwhelmed. Like I don't know. You can raise don't raise your hand if you don't want to, but like this is overwhelming, right? Like there's like 20 talks you had to go through in like 4 days, and like prioritizing which one to do is like kind of hard. And so what we normally hear at the end of a conference is like, "This was great. I'm so overwhelmed. What do I do next?" And like, so the author ecosystem is a way to like, once you know your ecosystem, what you want to work on and how you want to move forward, and then other people's ecosystem, you can sort of start matching those things together. Like if you were a forest and you want to work on your shared language of a forest, you go, oh, I'm gonna go and like watch this talk. I'm gonna watch Sarah Cannon's talk. But
Right.
like if you're like,
That's who I was thinking of.
yeah, I'm a tundra. And like my thing is like I'm embracing this is the year of my desert. I'm like embracing my inner desert. So like I'm going to all of these talks that make me feel a lot of feelings that I'm not very comfortable with. But like I'm doing them and I'm trying all of these things. So like I'm a pretty evolved tundra and I'm trying to like move myself forward in ways that are way, way, way outside of my comfort zone. And so like we just had an interview, Lee and I had just had an interview with Steve Piper the other week. And I'm like, Steve, last year I was not ready to hear these things, but like now I am ready to hear all of your very deserty like ways on how to optimize all of this stuff. I still don't feel
Yes.
comfortable with it, but like, so when you know your ecosystem and someone else's ecosystem, you can sort of say, this is how I'm going to move forward.
Yeah, so for the author ecosystems, you can take the test. So first of all, there is a full overview in this, but you can also take the test at authorecosystem.com. And then you can get the book at,
I'm
I don't
going.
know where.
It's
Okay.
writermba.com/AE book, but here's the link. And you can get a free, like it's like the test is now a year old. Now we should really like it's been a year since we really developed that test. So like we need to probably do another one relatively soon, but
Yeah.
you can get the book, which is all of our most the latest things. And um it's been really gratifying. It's been out for a year, how much it has connected with some people and like especially for us, but like especially like to be able to say to have something that's very specific to authors because a lot of this is no shade on Enneagrams or DISC or Clifton Strengths or any of those things, but like this was developed for authors with authors in mind and like specifically creatives in mind and just like I there's not another one that's like specifically been like a lot of them have been like they map very successfully onto like authorship and creativity and all of those things. But like this one was specifically developed from the data that we have had in our community. And like to watch people connect with it has been, like I said, very gratifying.
Yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, I lost the second. What's the second? Oh, the second exciting thing about our conference. What
That
is
it's in
it?
New Orleans and
It's in
it's
New Orleans. Okay, yeah. You talk about that. That's not what it was, but
I
I'm trying
mean,
to
I don't
think
know.
of what
Like
it was.
I mean, my very specific niche interest is death
Oh,
mythology.
I
So
do know.
like New Orleans is like ideal for me. Like I'm always like a crypt catacomb person wherever I travel. So like I like New Orleans is like totally my vibe. Did you figure out what the other thing is, or should I go
Yeah,
into?
no, no. Well, you can go into it, and
No, I
I'll
don't need to
just
go into it. I was just trying
okay.
to stall.
Vamping a little bit. Yeah. So the other thing is that the people that we're bringing together for this conference, they're really at the intersection of a lot of different ways that writers make money. So there are some people on this call who have been authors for like 12 to 15 years, like Russell and me and Tadra. But there are also lots of people who are maybe toward the beginning of their author journey, but they've been writing and possibly even making money at it in some other area, like blogging, newsletters,
Comics.
freelancing, comics, yeah, like other areas of publishing. other areas of entrepreneurship. Like I recently heard from somebody who wants to write a fantasy novel, and they are huge in the wellness health space, but they're like, fantasy novel, I have no idea where this is even coming from, like as a desire. And I also have no idea like what to do or where to start, or like how to have a positive experience in terms of writing this novel. So I think they're just people who have a lot of success in other areas, and really everybody who is coming to this, like they are successful in some area. They know something amazing about how to sell, how to market, how to run a business. Um, and they're able to bring all of that to the conference. And I think that's what's going to be kind of special about this conference, is it's not just, you know, authors. It's not just people who have been in this industry in the publishing or authorship space for a long time. It's people who have like a piece of that puzzle, in terms of how writers and how creatives can make money, and they have one piece of that, and maybe they're looking for more pieces so that they can expand their career or business or whatever. But it's all those people kind of put together. And so it's really like the ability to expand your network significantly, with people who are great at things that you may not be great at, or that you may be a beginner at, and
that
you
you
are
don't
an
even know
expert.
exist. Like
Right.
that's the big thing.
I
Uh,
agree. Yeah. Go. Yeah. Talk more about
yes.
this, Russell.
So like as I mentioned, I've been so like there's anthologies and there's comics and there's novels and there's nonfiction and there's like newsletters. I've been part of a lot of these things. And one thing that I call my publication the author stack because like I feel like it's like being a full stack developer. Like if you know one area, you think that like that is the way you make money. So like I started in comics. So like I was like, okay, the way we make money is Kickstarter and conventions. And then I started doing nonfiction and I was like, oh, like there's autoresponder sequences and there's courses and there's podcasts and there's like all of these other things. And like, then I was like, in fiction, it's like, oh, like you make a long series and you run Amazon ads and like and any one of those things, when I would tell the people already in there about what I was doing, it like blew their mind. Like the best example I can think of is Kickstarter for authors, because like that is a like movement that Monica and I were at the forefront in. Like I don't take credit for many things in my career, but like that was a big part of that was like Monica and I. And what really happened was like people who already understood the fiction stack were like Kickstarter, and they started doubling or 10xing their business because like they took a thing that was working and then they just added it. They didn't do anything new in fiction. They probably had capped out at what their things were doing in on retailers on their stack, but they just added this other thing. And suddenly like 10, 20, 30, 50, $100,000 more money was coming into them just because not because they were like being innovative in the area they knew, but they were adding things that they found from other modalities. And so when you bring in all of these intersectional things, and I know some of you do a lot of these do a lot of different stuff, like I'm able to survive as a creative because I do a bunch of different things. And like when something is drying up, I can move to something else or I can expand them all together. And like I can write very weird books and still make a living and like do all of these things. But like in authorship, like there are a lot of great conferences, but like most of them are about authorship. And so we want to, especially over time, bring in more intersectionality of people. But even if you're just like, well, I'm an author and I want to do author stuff, I've been trying to rack my brain now that I see like Monica and Tadra and I on this call. Like, I don't think there's a conference that has more author experience than us on the organizing team. Like we like Monica and I have like 120 books. I think Tadra's got like 120 books. Mel's got books and has been like helping author services for like ever. Like, I just think like it's the most experience in like writing fiction and nonfiction books of any organizing committee that I like people who, I mean, Nink has like a bunch of people on the board. So like, yes, like probably, but like, it's just like an incredible knowledge of like authorship that like exists from the top down, doing all of these things very successfully and being able to like point you in the right directions. Now that there are not other amazing conferences, there's like a ton of amazing conferences. Um, you know, Shell is on the committee for Author Nation, and like Audra runs Nink, and like those are two of our favorites, and there's a bunch of other ones, but like Tadris is 152 books.
But I think we have so I don't know. Yeah, I think we have like a pretty, well, Russell and me specifically, we have like a really diverse catalog each, and diverse in different ways. And then, Russell's like he's doing a lot on Substack and like with newsletters and kind of always pushing at the edge of what's possible for writers. And I feel like I do something similar, like tarot decks and coloring books and like pushing at that, like it's like a different edge, and he does comics, that's like a whole different edge. So I feel like we're often like what we have done is diverse, but then like what we are working on is like really diverse. And I think that we've always been those people. Like it's so like I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. Where we're like authors, but we're also very entrepreneurial, and we're also just like really interested in the fringes of like everything. Um, and so that's kind of like how we even got started doing Writer MBA. It was because Russell had been an expert in Kickstarter for so long, and I was like really interested in what he was doing, and like we were able to kind of translate it back to something that authors thought was foreign, and now like 3 years later see it as like part of the author stack. But I think there's stuff that I see Russell working on now that I know is going to be like standard in the author community 5 years from now, but he's working on it now, and it's like very new now, and there's huge opportunity now. And I will say that the people who followed us when we first did that Kickstarter stuff, like some of them are just killing it on Kickstarter, and like it changed their lives, it changed their careers. They were able to get like a head start in an area that and we're able to kind of break through the noise on something. And they have even started turning around and helping others with it, like consulting or teaching or whatever. But they are leaders in the Kickstarter community, and like, and also just have expanded their company. Like they went from being maybe like a 3-figure a year author, so like making less than $1,000, and now they're definitely like a 5-figure author. And I could name like many, like several of those people, and they were with us kind of from the beginning. And so I think that's where this conference is really exciting, is just Russell and I have these very fringe tastes. And like we're both just like working at the fringes of everything, and bringing those companies and those experts back to this conference to help them get in front of writers who are interested, and then also help writers like open up their mind to the possibilities and see, like, of course you can't do everything, but we truly believe that authors and all writers have to forge their own path right now. There's so many different options, and we believe the path to 7 figures or 6 figures or whatever your goal is really different for everyone. But because everybody has their own unique path and their own unique stack, that makes room for a lot of people at the table. Like a lot of people have an opportunity to turn writing into a part-time career, a full-time career, or even like a really big career. I think in our opinion, because and like part of the work is finding your own path and like matching platforms and ideas to your personality and to your abilities.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that um what is really interesting about the time we live in is that you can pretty much make a living doing just about anything. The scary part is you can make a living doing just about anything. And like, what is really interesting listening to Monica talk, or when I have calls, or when like Tadra or like one of us has done all of the things. And like, it's one of the, like I had said at the conference, I said, someone at this conference, we just went under the Future of Publishing, someone on this conference has a key to your lock. I don't know who that is. Like, I don't know like what the key, what the block you have is, but like when you bring enough smart people in the thing, like I know that there's a lock. There's a key for that lock. And I talked to, I don't know if you were on the call with Lee and I the week where she was like, I guess I just had to meet Russell because like to get like she wanted to do comics and
Yeah.
she wanted to do a podcast, and like I want to do a podcast, and like it just kind of all intersected in that moment. And like I can't tell you how many times either I'm talking to Monica or Monica's talking to me and we're on a call and she's like, well, why don't you just do this thing that like this random person did like 5 years ago, where I say, and it's like, oh, like all of that institutional knowledge is like what we try to dump into the conference and the mastermind and all of these things that we do. And we try to bring the people to the table who are going to help you do that. Whether you are a baby author and you're like, I'm someone in our circle community was like, there's, you guys seem like so advanced, and like I don't, there's too many things. Um, like we want to be like, well, you like here are the strategies for like a baby author. Like Monica has her productive novelist series. Like there's a whole bunch of things for like craft and like dipping your toe in the water. Or if you're like, I'm running into these blocks, like we have strategies for like more advanced people, or like people who just, I wouldn't consider when I went to Kickstarter I was ready to do advanced things. Just like I was not having success doing the thing, and so I was doing these other things. Our direct sales mastery book outlines like the 5 main areas that we think about for direct sales, and like, I don't know, probably one of those ways plus retailer sales like is going to get you where you need to go. I do want to make sure that we answer any questions because like we have used almost all of these tools. One of us has used almost all of these tools. So like, do you have questions about the tools that were presented? Like, do you have things that you want us to go over? Because like we could talk for another hour about like ourselves. Like I'm a metrovert, so like as long as the attention's on me, I will never stop talking. But like we want to make sure this is actionable for you leaving this and leaving this conference. And either you're going to be like, I'm going to go and upgrade to the VIP. I'm going to come to your conference. I got a thing. Because like I guess I gave you a lot of key. We gave you a lot of keys. We want to figure out like how to get the locks open.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I would say, based on what you have seen, and even if you haven't seen very much of the virtual, that's also okay. I am a firm believer that the right information comes to you at the right time. So maybe you only needed one talk from that virtual and you got it. Maybe you only needed this call from that virtual and you got it because there's somebody who said earlier, like, I haven't watched any of it. I just came to the call to be live and have fun. And that's great. But definitely like thinking through everything you've seen, like what is your next step? What and or what is your next question?
Yes.
Like
Or like,
Russell said.
yes. Like I like to think of it. So like the name of our podcast is, well, the name of Monica and my podcast is Kickstart Your Book Sales. But like Lee and my podcast is called the Six Figure Author Experiment, where we're basically the idea is like we want to unlock your first or next 6 figure opportunity. And so like, is it Kickstarter? Is it retail? For Lee, she like wants to do Kickstarter and do a 6 figure Kickstarter like over the summer. For me, it's I want to get my fiction on retailers. Monica hasn't revealed hers yet, I don't think, but like, um, I know like our like so like I try to think of like what is the six-figure opportunity that I'm unable to see, because like that's the other thing. It's like you might be unwilling to so if you want to come live, if you want to like get unmuted and like ask your and like we can do some of that. Like this is really I want to know. Oh, okay, there are some
Yeah,
questions.
there are some questions.
Okay.
Before, so Russell already said this, but I do want to say if you consider yourself a baby author or baby writer or whatever, you can actually read baby, you're like maybe not baby, maybe like toddler Monica and toddler Russell's understanding of authorship. We have book series. So mine is The Productive Novelist, like Russell already said. It like literally just follows my career from like starting in 2014. So that was 10 years ago that some of these books were conceived and written. So you can read like here's what like toddler Monica was like thinking about or worried about or figuring out. And Russell has the same thing. His complete creative book series, I believe two of those books were written, you know,
Yeah.
around maybe like 2015, 2017 timeframe, but like that was nearly a decade ago at this point. It was certainly more than 5 years ago. And so
Right.
there was a lot that Russell, you know, toddler Russell had not figured out at that point. And so if you're looking for that type of resource, you know, you also have like a huge backlist of podcast episodes from that time period. So like we've been doing this for a long time. Like we've both been doing this since about 2014 to 2016. And so like you can read a lot of our old work and it's all like kind of organized for you as well, so definitely check some of that out if that's helpful to you. And let's now we'll do questions.
Sure.
I wanted to say
Okay.
that first.
Sure. Okay. So, someone asks, how do you decide which focus is best for you after learning this information? Feel like I have a few options narrowed down, but I'm not sure which one to start with. I mean, I don't want to go back to pimp the author ecosystems, but I'm going to because like this is basically what so the book has stages of your author growth, and then there's like three parts of it. It's what is your natural ecosystem, what stage are you at, and then like what are other people's ecosystems and what stage are they at. So like if you are a forest, or if you're a grassland, you'll be real, and let's say you're a level stage 3 grassland, and that means you're doing some things that are successful but a lot of things that are not. You would want to probably double down on the things that are working, and you'd want to find someone who's already doing that kind of thing. So Monica, do you have a non-author ecosystems thing? Because I know a lot of people don't know the
Yeah,
author ecosystems. So, like, how would
sure.
they, besides going and reading the book, like,
Yeah, I mean, I think those are great resources. I think if you read the book, the author ecosystems makes a ton of sense, and it really like seems to click in people's minds once they read through the book. Um, the other thing, though, I'm just gonna steal from Russell's podcast co-host Lee, who and she would say, you know, what sounds fun right now. So, like, what is the thing you're most excited about? I think that is a pretty good clue. And following your intuition around that can be a really good path to take. Now, sometimes you know we have fears that are coming up, and like we don't want to step outside our comfort zone. So like make sure it's not that. But if you're looking at you know several options and you're like excited about you know one of them a little bit more, you're like that one feels like in particularly like it feels really good. I would just start there, and then if you know if you're kind of like well a lot of them sound really good, you know I think I would probably do maybe just like a little experiment. Like maybe you're like hey Kickstarter sounds good, and it's like well okay you know maybe you want to read a Kickstarter book. We have a Kickstarter book, but like maybe you want to, or like join a group, or like just learn more about Kickstarter. Maybe you want to like set up a test page and see if see if that is actually fun. And if it's not fun, or if it's not working for you, then, move on. But I think, doing a little test in like let's say you have 3 options, like do a small test in those, or like start to explore each one just a little bit more, without committing to it, and just stay open to data that you experience.
So as a contrarian human generally, I will just say that like that does generally keep you inside of a comfort zone that you already know. And like people you and also lower on the like easy to hard scale, like it does mean that you will, and I see this because we're going, if you haven't seen the podcast, sixfigureauthorexperiment.com, like you can see as I'm working through this launch that I'm doing, which is kind of, I'm launching all of these books on retailers starting in July. And part of me is like, she says this, and I go away and I think she's right. But which of these things actually will lead to the biggest growth for me in like that is not that is exciting, but maybe not comfortable. So like being a desert's not fun. Like it's not fun for me. Like, but like I have spent so much, it's brought me so much clarity because it's so antithetical to how I think. So, like, I think though, assuming you are, let's say, a stage 2, which is I'm doing all the wrong things, or I'm a stage 3, I'm doing some of the right things, but a lot of the wrong things. Like, what you need to do is figure out how to basically leap to stage 4, which is I'm doing all of the right things but I'm capped out at growth. And so the question is, if you're, and most authors ping pong between I'm doing some things that work and then I'm doing nothing because the things that are working stop working. And so they're like ping ponging back and forth. Most every author ping pongs between a stage 2, then finds a one thread that works, but doesn't double down at it enough to actually get to stage 4 where they have enough revenue to start expanding out. Which is really like what we're trying to teach overall in the ecosystems is like how do we go from nothing is working to oh wow, one thing's working well enough that I can now like start expanding out. And so the question that I would have for most of you is like, if you were on stage 2, by the way, stage 1 is I'm doing things and I don't even know if they're good or bad. There's just chaos. And stage 0 is, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't even. So like if you're a stage 0, I would say just do literally anything. The smallest win. Do something because even if you're doing something that's not good, that you wrong, you still are like going from stage 0 to 1, just literally doing anything. And if you're on stage 1 to stage 2, like bring some intention because once you know that you're doing things wrong, you're still on stage 2. You've now gone from stage 0 to 2, and like you've not even had to do anything successful. You just had to do things. And by just doing and testing and pinging a bunch of stuff, you'll start saying, ugh, this is terrible. This is great. I don't like this. I don't like that. And then you'll say, I like this and it's working. And that's when you're like going to stage 3. Wow, like just by finding one thing that works, you're like on to stage 3. You went from 0 to 3 real easy. And then it's about saying, okay, how do I double down and triple down and quadruple down? How do I go all in on this enough to and cut things that aren't working enough that I can get that escape velocity to really have that success? And for some people, it's going to be Kickstarter. For some people, it'll be a subscription. Some people will be like, you know what I really want to do? I just want to figure out what the best genre is, the hottest genre, and I just want to write that. Like I don't need like it doesn't need to be anything I care about necessarily. I find joy in the work. I can write anything. And like whatever that thing is for you is going to kind of determine what your So like if you're a desert, you're gonna be able to say, these are the hot trends. I'm hitting that one and I'm gonna write a book a month. And like I don't care, I'm fine with that. But then like you're gonna be weighed down by things like having a Kickstarter and having a membership community and having all of these things that aren't working for you are gonna be dragging you down. So like I would say just cut all that stuff and do 10 books. And like if you can do it and it's successful, then like awesome. You're now in stage 4. You can now embrace your inner whatever other thing. Does that make sense, Monica? Is that like track?
Yeah, I think it does track. And I just think, you really are gonna figure out your option by trying. And again, like small, like take a small bite of something and see if you want to keep pursuing it. But yes, I agree. Like once you've kind of taken a couple bites and like sampled the menu, the narrowed down menu that you've chosen, then I think you gotta like order a dish and go all in, and like that's your meal for the evening. So you're gonna go all in on the thing and double down on it, especially, and I think so much of it is like, does it work for your project? Does it work for your personality? Does it work for you? Your circumstances, your personality, your budget, like all those things. Russell says something all the time, which is like the most productive, like the best productivity tip is like, what are you actually going to do, or something like that. Maybe you
Yeah.
could say it better, but it's like, if you're not going to do it, it like absolutely does not matter if it's like the best path for you, because
Yeah,
you're not doing it. So
absolutely. All right. This next question, I hope if that didn't answer your question, you can clarify it and we'll talk about it. I'm going to put a link in here because this next question, I hate it so much, but I'm going to answer it because it
well,
makes me so
then
uncomfortable, but I'm going to
I
do it.
I'll share something after you, because
Okay.
I feel like I know what the, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this question is, I want to know, Russell, how you balance using a new marketing company because you know and trust the people and want to commit for 3 months, but ultimately have to fire them anyway because it's the wrong fit. How do you square the error in judgment to learn from it? I so the lesson that I have here, and I think Monica and I have talked about this in behind the scenes. I don't know if I've said it in public, is so what happened was in February, I hired this marketing company to do all of my ads and all of my growth. And like I pretty quickly knew it was a bad fit because they did not work in publishing, they did not work in newsletters, they did not have success building my exact kind of thing. And that, which is something that I always was frustrated that other people didn't like trust us to work outside of the thing that we already know. But now I'm like, oh, I kind of get it now, especially if you're a desert, like it has to work. If you're embracing your inner desert, like you need to find someone who's really like product market fit. Anyway, I fired them. I lost $30,000 and I like fired them like 3 months
But
later.
like lost $30,000 is not 100% true, because you gained like
Right.
a lot of email subscribers. So it wasn't as
Yes.
much as you wanted, but you gained a lot
Yes.
of, like, it's not, yeah.
Yeah, so my like a good number to aim for with like getting a new newsletter subscriber is $1 to $3 when you're doing ads. And this was like 250 or 260, so it was on the higher end, but it was still in the like not terrible range. Um, my what I had always said to people was find someone who does the exact thing you need. And what I learned was there's a second half of this, which is something that the exact thing you need in the industry that you need them to work in. And I had not, I think probably I would have come to this realization without hiring them, but focusing on that bit was like very hard.
Yeah.
But like I could just tell like they weren't like they didn't do anything wrong because like I run ads for people and like I looked at their thing and I was like, okay, like this is all fine. But what I needed was someone to help me to go from 0 to 1. And like they were very good at going from like, let's call it 10 to 100. They were good at scaling, and I needed someone who could make me more consistent revenue and like get me at the bottom here. And they just were not the right person. It doesn't matter like how like I was just hiring them was a horrible mistake, but they were not horrible. It just was not right for me. It did, however, teach me kind of exactly what I needed to do to scale. And like now, if you guys got my email this weekend, like I'm doing a daily newsletter and like it's gonna be ad supported. No one yelled at me about it. Very many people unsubscribed because they didn't want it, but like no one like flat out yelled at me and told me what a terrible. But in fact, like a lot of people were like, I can't. I love Morning Brew, but I love that it's about like independent authorship and such. So like I was very excited to hear that. Um, and but like the error in judgment was a an unknown unknown, which was I needed to hire someone. Like if I was making Morning Brew, they may be able to help me, but like that was not what I was doing back then. And I don't know, that's a lot of rambling. It was very tough to watch and tough circle the square, but like I'm still spending thousands of dollars on newsletter growth a month. Like I'm still like trying to figure this out. Like I still think that it's the future for like how I can best help our conference and like Writer MBA to figure this thing out because it's something that and spending time focused on a thing you are uniquely bad at makes you much better at it. But the only reason I can do that is because I already had success that was churning our businesses along. Like we were able to make money. We were still making money. Like 30 losing that money, like I still had money coming in. Like we were still able to do whatever we needed to do, but like it was hard. So like I don't know, don't lose any money you're not don't spend any money you're not willing to lose or can afford to lose is a pretty good one too.
I also just think like error in judgment, I kind of take issue with that wording because I feel like just talking like I wanted to share like the behind, like talking to Russell about this, like you're not, I mean, I'm not saying you're not upset or like you don't miss that money, but like you're very positive about because I think you learned what you needed to learn from it, even though it was a really expensive lesson. But honestly, like a lot of us have paid a lot, like people go to school for the wrong degrees. Like that's a more expensive lesson than this was.
Right.
Or, people marry the wrong person. Like that's a really expensive lesson. Ask me how I know. So like I just think, there are way worse mistakes to make. And like even in business, worse mistakes. But something that I learned years and years ago is that the more successful you are, the more costly every mistake is because it kind of like the more success you have, the more it amplifies all the great things about your business, but also all the not great things about your business. And so like every mistake, I remember like when I started out, like I would make a mistake and it was like, okay, I lost a couple $100s. And then it was like, I make a mistake and like, oh wow, I'm losing like thousands of dollars from this mistake. So I think it kind of demonstrates like the level that Russell's at with this is like, yeah, he lost like he lost like five figures. That's because he's operating at like this much this really like elevated level on this problem. And so it's like, and just that like it's not like a lot of like obviously like 30 grand like that would shut down somebody else's business. It could even shut down somebody else's life. Like your life is now in trouble. Your personal life is now in trouble. But I just think it's like kind of normal, like operating like, and I think like we should kind of normalize it in these discussions too, where it's like, yes, it sounds like a big number, but like, if you want to be like a six-figure author, going into like the mid six-figure range, it's like this is a possibility of like,
Yeah.
you're gonna swing hard and it, and I also think you gained a lot from it, like in terms of like subscribers and like, and sometimes it takes a while for those assets to really show like like financial results. So it's like maybe it wasn't even a $30,000 loss. It certainly wasn't that, but like maybe it wasn't even like a loss at all. Like we don't, like
Yeah,
who
we don't
knows?
know.
Like one
I
of those
mean,
people could like hire you for like 10 grand or
yeah.
and
I
then
mean,
it makes it up.
it's really interesting because when I used to do conventions, and the best conventions are the worst conventions because that's how you meet the people who end up changing your life in the long haul. I remember like there's two things that like happened with one to both of us and one that I saw you were talking about. One was like when you sign a contract for a conference, like just like nothing else, you're just like, oh, I'm making bankruptable mistakes now. Like I could be making bankruptable mistakes. And like I'd never but at some point you get to the level and you're like, how did someone like seven-figure like human like lose $40 million? And you're like, oh, because like they're making like if you have $100 million business and like you make two mistakes, like you could like literally like lose just a ton of money. And so like the higher you play, like but you like investment always comes before growth. No matter what it is, you either invest time or money and like whether that is
Usually
in a
both.
seed, whether that
Yeah,
is, like if you want to grow, you have to invest. Like it never happens the other way. We all want it to happen the
I
other way. We
know.
all want growth to happen and then like investment to come after. But
Right.
like in every, unless you have a viral hit, and I don't even think you want
But
the
even
viral hit because you don't want, because like
you're not ready for it.
you
Yeah.
want the structure in place. I know plenty of people who've grown too fast and they just like
And it blows up.
it blows up because they
Yeah.
just don't have the infrastructure. So like you want investment to happen before growth because then you're ready for it. But the second thing is you were saying something about like you've been playing at the same, you've been playing with the same set of tools, but you're not getting results. I forget how you said it, but like, do you remember what I was talking about?
I don't know if I do, but I mean, I think like we all hit a point like you're like so whatever your marketing or sales thing is now that's working for you, like it's going to come to an end in one of two ways. One is that like the outside the external forces shift and then it becomes less effective. Like that's one way. The other way is like you outgrow it. So like one example that I think both of us have is like we both used to do a ton of podcast interviews, like a lot. Like and Russell did like over 100 in like summer one year, but like I've also done like I did like 50 in a year one year. And now like if we do a podcast episode, podcast guest on a podcast or whatever, like it doesn't really bring in like the same level of visibility that it used to because we're kind of saturated within our market. Like a lot of people already know about us, and we've like been in front of them multiple times already. So we don't like I don't do a lot of podcast interviews anymore because it's not really a thing. Like the same thing happened to me with speaking. The same thing happened to me with X, Y, and Z. So like I barely like I say that, but I actually am going to be on Somewhere Book Show tomorrow. And I'm speaking at Author Nation later this year, but like I'm not doing like 5 talks a year anymore. I'm not going on like 10 podcast episodes a year anymore because those are not as effective. So like I know for myself, organic growth is kind of halted in terms of what I can do. And like my only next step is ads. And I've been avoiding it because I don't want to do it. It's uncomfortable. And Russell basically hit the same, you've been like we've both been at this point for a while. Russell like pulled the trigger on doing it before I did. Again, I have a 6-month-old, so I have not, but like it's like I've known for like 6 months plus that like I need to do it too. So I think that's
Yeah.
probably what you're getting at. Another thing I wanted to say is like, to Russell's point, I think that's like the biggest thing I see with authors who like feel stuck, are stuck. It's like they literally want, and I was thinking about this earlier today. It's like they literally want like things to come to them without them having to give anything, like to give up anything, or to like put themselves out there in like a really uncomfortable way. And it doesn't work. It's exactly what you said. Like you have to invest like so much before it starts to boomerang back to you. And that's like probably the number one thing I see with like authors, like writers, everything. It's like they want things to boomerang back before they feel safe to go forward. And like a lot, like pretty much you, in some ways, you have to jump off the cliff in order for a parachute to appear below. Like you're
Right.
gonna look down there. There's no, or not parachute. What are those things? Like I don't know. But
Like
in
a
order,
trampoline or something
yeah,
that
like a
net,
trampoline to
net, a
catch, like
net.
a net to catch you, like the
Right.
net to catch you. You want to see that before you jump, but like it's just not the way it works. Like at least in my experience, a lot of times you have to like you think the net's there, and like you have this little piece that you can risk to jump to make that jump. So and I think like in more more businessy terms, it really is like you have to invest in growth before you see the rewards of it, basically. Like it's just not going to come to you.
Yeah, and it's we've seen good things happen from like the same kind of stuff, and sometimes you just
Mm-hmm.
like this
Yeah.
conference, like were not prepared to like we were not ready to have a conference, like we did not, we had zero conference like aside from virtual like experience, and then like we left and like we trusted Mel and Tadra, and we still almost every call is like, we're doing, oh, are we sure we're okay? Like, and they're like, you're doing good, you're doing great, it's going good. Just like chill. But like, so some partnerships like did work, and I kind of created the model for like now it's like, well, Mel and Tadra work on like a premier writing conference in America, and like we want a premier writing conference in America that has roughly 300 to 500 people. So like they like just all of those things like line up. So next question is, what do you think about BackerKit as a crowdfunding platform for authors? I've used it. I know they're doing a big push in September or something about like authorship. They reached out to us about it. I think that the way that you can do like a group project is really interesting. I still question their audience. It seems like you really can do great there as long as you have an audience or you're in board games. Aside from that, like I've I've not really seen somebody on the lower end or even mid end like do anything that they could do better on Kickstarter. For our project, I could have done way better on Kickstarter than I did by going to BackerKit. But this was a year ago. Like they've done a lot of stuff. Um, I probably would not test out an unproven platform for novels for a novel. Like I know what Kickstarter can do. I know that it can work. Like I've seen it work. I would, especially if you've never done a crowdfunding before, I would go with the Cadillac model and then
Mm-hmm.
figure it out and then say, I understand, like I know this model works. I'm going to try it on BackerKit now. Like prove the model and then move the platform. Don't test two things at one time.
Yeah, I agree. I'm doing I probably am gonna do some backer kit projects this year just to really just to well, just because they've been asking us to basically. But I think I have like low to no expectations for it basically. Just because I don't think their publishing category has a lot of audience right now, like Russell said. And um yeah, like I can like if I'm bringing my own audience to something, like I can just do that in like a store and like not give this other company like a bunch of money. So yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely I think that in a year or two we're gonna see more. I mean, if you have the time and energy and like very low expectations, there may be some value in getting in on the ground floor, but I also think like the ground floor is going to be there for at least the next year to 2 years would be kind of my guess, is that you're like we're still in like the early adoption stage, and you have time. Like, this is not something that I would jump on in the next couple months, unless you have a plan.
Yes. All right. How do you build excitement for your very first book? Don't bother. Like, I'm not going to say don't. That's flippant. I'm sorry. Like, so everyone talks, unless you are on KU, and in KU in a hot genre like Mafia or Shifters. I'm sure there's others, but those are the two things that are coming to sweet, clean, small town romance. Like, there's a couple of ones that like you could on your first book smash it out of the ballpark. Um, but like, unless you're in KU, there's very little, or you're going for a Wall Street Journal, um, USA Today Bliss Run, which doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah,
like,
no, it doesn't.
There's so much energy that you are expected to build up for your launch week, which like only really matters at this point if you have a book publishing deal and they really want those first week numbers. You are better off planning out how do you keep being interested in this book for the next year or 2 years and build up over time. Like, how do you make sure in book by book 4 it's very, very anticipated that your next book's going to, that like everyone is ready for it? Because like it's very hard to make excitement for a book that nobody has read. It's a lot easier to build that over weeks and months and such. And now I see Monica is like spinning
Well,
that.
no, I think that's true. And I think that's especially true for fiction. For nonfiction, like if you have an audience, you can probably, or if it's like a topic that's kind of fresh, that there's not a lot in the niche on, that could be good. I mean, really, that is kind of the only, like, I don't want to say the only way that you build like excitement for your first book, but it needs to be like different. It basically needs to be like something in like a quite nascent genre that has high demand. And I would say like it's going to be hard for you to find that if you don't study Amazon like really regularly, and like if you don't like if you're not like kind of listening to like what other authors are saying. And then it's also like, even if you know what that is, like it can be even harder to really hit that in your first book. Not to say you shouldn't try or you shouldn't want to, because you can, but I do think, I do kind of agree with a lot of what Russell's saying.
Well, and Lee even said this. Okay, so like I having this podcast with Lee is fascinating because like we are both very successful authors, but like we're not seven-figure authors. So like just being able to get into someone's head who's like at that level is like
Right.
wild. And one of the things she said is like, I just wrote a comic for her book Sold to the Berserkers, which is her first series. She's like, did okay, didn't do great. Then she's like, my next series did better. And my like third series like knocked it out of the park with like
Mm-hmm.
Renee. And so like a lot of times you just like learn. So what generally happens is with authors that I know at least is like they'll do a book and be like, "Oh, I should have made them a witch and not a psychic. I should have like made it them wolf shifters and not squirrel shifters. Like I should have like it's like there are all of these things that like you are like, oh, these
Oh.
awkward choices that I make are like I know how to do it better next time. And I say
Yeah.
that and I'm just like people love the Godsverse Chronicles, and I'm like, the first books I wrote were book 5, 6, and 7, and 8. I had to go back and like loop around and like write these other books at the beginning of my series because those first books like were not it. Like they just weren't it. And I was like, then even before then, I was like writing standalones. I was like, I'm gonna make standalones work. I'm gonna be the one human being who makes standalones work. And like then like 30 books later, I'm just like, I'm not making standalones work. What is the thing? It's like fairy tales, dragons, cool. My book's gonna have fairy tales, dragons, and like whatever. If they're and like it's not gonna say the words portal fantasy. It's gonna say like fairy tales, like whatever that. But like there are these things that you learn just by doing it. But even then, like realistically, you cannot expect your books to break even until you hit book four, like on ads. And so like you should like just make the books move slightly better and better and better until you get to book four and book five, and then like you'll be in profit, probably realistically. So, but like, yeah, it's so hard to get people to buy the book one. And like it's so easy once you have book three to like make book one 99 cents or free and then get read through in it in a way you can't when you only have one book. So it's not to say don't like just luff off book one, but like I'm going through this. If you listen to the podcast, Lee and I are going through this with book one right now of my book of my God's Verse Chronicles series that we're launching. It's like this is it 99 cents? Is it 9.99? Like and she's like, well, once you have book three out, you can
Right.
then drop a
Drop it.
9.99 book to 99 cents and it's a real value. And then like people will move forward through your series. And it's just like I would if I was worried about getting excitement built up for book one, instead of saying, how do I just establish that people see me as an author and like that I have a book out? And so like by the time book three comes around, they'll go back to book one and read the whole thing. I think I would have been happier because like so much is dependent. And also the industry has so much dependence on launch week. But like that's
Yeah.
still only going to be a fractional share of your like overall money that you make from the
Right.
book.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I'll say about this is like, it's not fun to listen to like veterans of the industry say these things. Like, I get it. I remember my first book, I was like, I think this book is so good, it could sell 1 million copies. Like, I literally believe that in my head because I didn't really know any better. And like, it's not fun to hear, like, oh, by the way, you need 4 books before you'll even like be able to make a little money. And like, so or like, like Lee's stuff, like she like her she waited till series 3. That means she's like 10, 15 books deep before like she's seeing success. And like that is not like it's true and it's not that fun to hear. And so I do want to just say, because we never talk about like, we actually do give you shortcuts in our backlist. Like, so I have 2 books. One is called Story Cemetery, which basically takes like 100+ books about craft and puts it into like this really like much simpler framework. And then we have a bunch of like, we talk about this all the time, but we have psychological triggers, like a huge, like massive list of psychological triggers that you can basically just layer them into your story, or you can even just, even if you're just aware of like, hey, I'm using this in my story. Like, let's say a bomb is going to go off, for example, and there's like limited time. Well, that is a psychological trigger called scarcity. And so, like, you are using scarcity in your book. Or what if I'm Bridgerton and, like, my character is a Penelope Wallflower? Well, you're using social proof in your book. And so, like, even just, like, so we have, like, again, we have this list. It's in a book called Editing for Marketability. It's actually in a number of our books now because so many people didn't know about, like, these psychological triggers. So we're like, okay, we keep putting it in all of our books. But you can look at that and be like, oh, like this is something that is like sticky in people's minds. So you can look at the list and be like, I'm going to throw like way more of those in there. Or you can be like, wow, I have like 10 of these in there and I'm going to use that as part of my copy or as part of like my promotional materials and point out like all of these like little sticky things that like just stick in people's minds. So there is a playbook for writing a better book, especially on it's really on the fiction or the nonfiction side. So definitely check out those. We also have friends, Theodora Taylor's book. It's called Seven Figure Fiction. She talks about universal fantasies. Jennifer Hilt's multiple books about tropes. Those are two people, and like our friend Inez Johnson, she has a Substack as well.
The
She
best
was
name
a
for a Substack of all time. It's called Inez
screenwriter.
Johnson is having a breakdown.
It's a breakdown of story.
Breakdown of story.
Yes. So like, and they have like podcasts and newsletters and like all sorts of support, to help with this. And I think studying craft, also, I forgot to say, like, come to our story urge course if the psychological trigger stuff is interesting to you, because that's what the course is about. So there are like other things you can do, but yeah, I would say lean into those psychological triggers on your first book, both inside the book. Like inside the book is the most important, but then like knowing them and being able to like describe them to people outside the book is going to get you more views, basically.
Yes. All right.
I'll add those other ones. Those other books.
All right. We caught up. Any other questions? Yes, I will say that, like, especially if you're in nonfiction, then definitely having one book can still be a boon, but usually you're using that to build out the rest of your funnel, like whether it's a course funnel or usually it's a speaking funnel. So like even memoirists, they're often like working with places to like have to talk to abuse survivors or to talk about like suicide prevention or like something. They're still building whatever their like niche is with that memoir. Not all of the time. Many people do just want a memoir because it's out there, but like you should really be thinking about like series and how to depend a series dependent on like what your ecosystem is as well. So okay. All right. Well, I don't think we have any more questions. So I want to talk about Story Urge.
Yes.
So we have
great lead-in.
Yes, we have a course coming up. It's a live training course in July called Story Urge. It's all about psychological triggers and making books that are hooky and baking marketability into your books. The biggest issue that younger authors have, and the thing that really usually gets them to be professional authors, is when they can figure out how to bake the marketing bits into their books, like how to make your books hookier, how to use universal fantasies better, how to like use shared language better, how to do all of the things that get people excited about the book. It's not saying inside of your book you should say buy my free book or get my free book. We're not talking about that. We're talking about like the book sells itself. Because so often the problem ends up being like, oh, you could run $1 million of ads to this thing and like no one's gonna buy it because like it's just not right. Like it's not marketable enough to like be successful. So like this is all about we talk all about the platforms about like how to be successful, but really like if you really boil it down to it, like it's the book and baking the book in that's going to determine how successful you can be, right, Monica?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an amazing course. And, we're also just going to have like general storytelling principles in there. And some of it is, again, from the books that I mentioned, Story Symmetry and Editing for Marketability. But we are going to focus a lot on the psychological triggers. And really, I mean, the thing about this course and the reason that we're doing it, because we're not really known as like craft people at all. We're so kind of like, again, like toddler Monica and toddler Russell like wrote about craft and made courses about craft. And so the reason we're doing it now though is because a lot of people come to us for marketing and sales, and sometimes the issue is the product, like, and like, so we see this as kind of like like, I don't want to say the last course, because I'm not saying we won't make other courses, but we have like this full suite of marketing and sales courses, and we just see this as like the last piece that's like kind of critical for authors to know. And we think we have a really unique angle on it regarding the psychological triggers. I don't think anyone's really dived like super deep into that, and if they have, or if they have like their own wording around it, then we're hoping to bring them in so that we can, or we have already brought them into our membership anyway, but we're hoping to bring them in so that they can share some of this stuff. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great course. This is the first and only time it will really be live, or it may be live in the future, but we're recording it like, so you'll never be there at the recordings again, aside from this first round of it. And do we want to say the other thing?
Yeah. Well, I realized that there was no sales page for it and no way to buy it. So like I'm gonna put a link to buy in the chat. But the biggest thing is, like, if you come to the conference, you get it for free. It is a $300 course. It is free for all attendees, whether you come regular, whether you come as a conference attendee. There are which you can do for as little as $50 a month, like $50 over 10 payments for 10 pay. So $50 times 10. We're ending that in this month. We're not going to do a 10 pay anymore because it's now 10 months until the conference. So I'm going to put the link for the conference as well. But this is the big thing, is we're trying to find ways to beef up what the conference does. No conference is going to like give you free courses. Like, nobody does that. Nobody. I've never seen one conference do that thing. So like, you're going to be able to get, that's one of the things that makes us different. You are going to get our free conference, our free conference. No, you're going to get Story Urge, a $300 product, for free. And you are going to also get VIP for free. So if you're going to be able to upgrade to this conference for free. If you want to take your VIP and convert it into a membership and into coming to the conference, then email us at support@Writer MBA and we can make that happen. You want to talk a little bit more about the course now that I got all that stuff in here?
Sure. So the course, it basically follows it follows a lot of things. Like it really like weaves a lot of stuff that we have both learned individually into a like proper course. And a lot of it, some of it is scattered throughout our books. Some of it is just stuff that we just know as like kind of, seasoned storytellers across both nonfiction and fiction, and just all the things that we've learned. Because I think that, with the focus on psychological triggers, I mean, first of all, like almost everybody here has probably taken a craft course, like about like storycraft. It has not been from sales and marketing people, like people who specialize in that. And so like, that's great. Like if you're taking it from a craft person, but like it's even better taking it from people, because like your goal is, I mean, maybe your goal is craft, but like your goal is usually craft in order to sell or market a book, right? Like that is your goal, is you want to write an amazing book that sells. And so taking a craft course from sales and marketing people just kind of makes sense. And I think it's actually, I know that it's like the number one missing thing in craft books, because I have read like literally like over 100 of them, and I had read somewhere between 60 and 80 of them before I even like started to like put together a framework about this. So I know it's definitely the missing piece. A lot of craft books come from out of traditional publishing, which is great, but like they're not teaching people how to write a book that's going to sell. Like that is because that's not what, I mean, I don't want to say that's not traditional publishing school. I think it is, but There's a much more literary slant to it, versus if you're an independent author, you can love literature and love literary as much as you want, but if you're trying to make this like a career, like you've got to be able to market and sell your books. And so I think what's really great about what we've like woven together is it pulls in a lot of marketing areas that I think people wouldn't necessarily have experience in. So like PR and like, you know, how do you write things that are kind of relevant to the modern, to like what's going on in the world. It pulls in copywriting with the psychological triggers. It pulls in sales with like the funnels, sales and marketing with like talking about funnels and stuff. So it's pulling from like all these different areas of marketing that, and like translating all of that into things like plot and theme and tropes and like whatever else. And it's definitely a translation that's desperately needed. And I think that we're kind of the people that can deliver it. We're
Well,
also, yeah.
can I say something? All right, so
Yeah, absolutely.
like all of these things are great, but like what I think the biggest thing is we are marketing and salespeople who are also successful fiction authors. Like
Yeah.
I made most of my business on fiction for years. Like I get hired to write fiction books. And these are all things that like very successful fiction authors know that like they are never going to tell you because like they're writing books. Like it's not like that's a secret. They just like they're out there like writing, they're not doing like they're not teaching how to like write a seven-figure book. Like they're writing a seven-figure book. And so like while we are marketing and salespeople, like to the core, like we are also fiction authors and like we are very successful at I am not a seven-figure successful fiction author like Lee, but like I am a six-figure successful fiction author. And like I've made hundreds, I think close to, if not over $1 million on fiction in my career because like I can write a great book. And Monica's also been very successful in that. So like it's like the real secret, I think, the thing that's amazing about like Writer MBA is like it's these people who like are very successful nonfiction people and very successful fiction people, like merging those two things together. So you get like both sides of it. Usually you find a marketing and salesperson who has no idea what sells on fiction, or a fiction person who like can't properly explain what makes their books sell. But like we study both things and like we talk to each other and other people specifically about these things. Like these are our interests, and like a lot of authors can just do but they can't like teach. And I hate that word, that thing, like if you can't do teach, like I think you have to be able to explain something so that a 5-year-old can understand it to be able to teach it, and like that requires some amount of doing it. And so like yeah, so I think that having both of those things is really like there's plenty of sales and marketing people you can learn from. There's plenty of fiction authors you can learn from. There's very few people who have had such intentional focus and study of both things and had success in such both things as you'll find like in Writer MBA or in our courses. Sorry, I wanted to add that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also like, you know, whatever level you are, I think if you're, you know, starting out and you've read maybe a couple craft books, I think that there's enough connective tissue back to like phrases that you will have read about. And then I think if you are more advanced, I actually think, you know, there's not a ton of advanced storycraft, anything like books or courses anyway. So I think like, when was the last time you took a storycraft course? I think that if you're more advanced, like this could also just be another opportunity for you. Like, and sure, like you, it may like it may kind of refresh you on some stuff that you already know, as would any of our courses. Like our marketing courses do the same, like, because at some point you're so advanced that you know quite a deal, a big, a large amount of stuff as well. But I think that, there may be some connective stuff there as well. Really, and like I think it's going to be a great course for really any level. I think you should be able to jump right in and learn a lot.
Yeah, and if you just really love like the community aspect of like what we're doing at Writer MBA, like these are the kinds of things that you get by coming to our conference. Like we're trying to make it a an experience that we can support you throughout the year. And we can do things like the virtual conference, and we can do things like having these like story urge things that we'll all be able to go through together and like have a shared language by the time that like we all meet together, so that meeting together you'll already have groups of things that you already know, and you'll be on similar pages of everyone else. So so you put our support email.
Yes, I put our support email, support@writermba.com. So that's if you have gotten the VIP and want to get the conference. It's also just like if you like any reason, like just email support@writermba.com. If you can't find links, if you can't, like if there's something that you need, email us, because then we can get the thing to you. And then I also just put our community. Again, it's go.writermba.com. So you can come into the community and talk to us there too. And I think there's a lot of great content in there.
Awesome. All right. Well, we've now been talking for our requisite 2 hours roughly, and so I think this is a good time to say goodbye. If you guys have any questions, and hopefully you'll see us in the community. We'll also be at shows throughout the year, and we'll hopefully see you in July when we'll be doing our live cohort.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.